All right, Krishna, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to take a look at the 17th mantra of the Sri Isopanisad. This is the 18th part in the series because we also began with the invocation mantra. I hope that you guys enjoy this, and as always, you can follow along if you want to by picking up a copy of the Sri Isopanisad by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, which you can find on Amazon. It's a good translation of an ancient Bhakti text. So, all right, let's see here. Start at the beginning. Now, the Sri Isopanisad, as you guys all know who've been following this for a while, is one of the Upanishads, which is part of the philosophical summaries and commentaries on the Vedas. That's what the Upanishads are. The Sri Isopanishad is the Upanishad of the Lord. Isha means Lord, and this particular Upanishad was written in poetic verse consisting of 18 verses. Let's read mantra 17 together. We'll do it twice. Let this temporary body be burnt into ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, O my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you. I'll read it again. Let this temporary body be burnt into ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, O Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember me and all that I have. Please remember all that I have done for you. Beautiful verse. We're now getting into the last two concluding verses of the Sri Isopanishad, which are really talking about the moment of death, a very important moment in Bhakti Yoga. Let's read the purport from A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He says, "This temporary material body is certainly a foreign dress. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said that after the destruction of the material body, the living entity is not annihilated, nor does he lose his identity. The identity of the living entity is never, therefore, impersonal or without form. But on the contrary, it is the material dress which is formless and which takes a shape according to the form of the indestructible person." So, beautiful purport here, talking about the moment of death and the transmigration of the soul and our real identity, which is ultimately not with the body, that we have had many bodies and different forms of life, different species of life, and that the indwelling spirit soul still exists after the body dies. The moment of death is really important for a variety of reasons in Bhakti. In Bhakti, the quality and content of our consciousness at the time of death will shape our journey. It does so already in this lifetime. Who we associate with, what we take into our ears, what we take into our bodies, how we live this life determines the kind. It creates a different kind of consciousness, and what we are focused on, and especially what we're focused on at the time of death, also shapes the trajectory of how our spirit soul transmigrates at the time of death. So the goal is to stop the transmigration of the body through different material forms, and assuming our spiritual form, enter into the spiritual realm, sometimes also called the spiritual sky. So the idea here is not that, even though the verse mentions, sort of the life breath and merging the air with the totality of air, there's actually a long process that's described in the Srimad Bhagavatam and other sacred Bhakti texts, and even in classic yogic literature like the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, that basically describes a progression that the spirit soul goes through as it leaves the body and ascends into the spiritual dimension. In some traditions, it is described as a merging into total oneness. And although this merging picture is offered in this verse, if we go back up, let this temporary body be burnt into ashes and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. What he's talking about is the release of the vital material forces in the body as the soul is leaving the body. So that's not about merging into pure air. But that's a part of the process of how the spirit soul leaves the body. And then this is why the author calls on the Lord to remember the soul's devotion and sacrifices, because you're the beneficiary of all of those things. Please remember all the things that I've done for you, and take my soul into the spiritual realms. So that's the call that's being made. And in bhakti, it's understanding that at the moment of death, if we've cultivated a life of devotion and love for God and for others, that consciousness it's like a little beacon, that we have when we're leaving the body, and that beacon is like it's like a coordinate tracking system that allows us to go home, to take the journey home. So we do this through cultivating devotional love of God in our lives in the heart, so that at the time of death, that consciousness directs us homeward bound. And that's the idea. The Bhagavad Gita, in the 8th chapter, 5th verse, it says, "And whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt." Very simple. Remember God, put loving devotion of God at the center of our life, and when we're ready to pass out of the body, we attain that spiritual nature, which right now we are, but is covered over. The Srimad Bhagavatam is similar. The 5th canto, 3rd chapter, 12th verse, "Dear Lord, we may not be able to remember your name, form, and qualities due to stumbling, hunger, falling down, yawning, or being in a miserable disease condition at the time of death when there's a high fever. We therefore pray unto you, O Lord, for you are very affectionate to your devotees. Please help remember you and utter your holy. Please help us to remember you and utter your holy names, attributes, and activities which can dispel all the reactions of our sinful lives." In other words, there's also this prayer for grace and mercy. It's not that we cultivate devotion so that we can earn our way to heaven, something like that. No, we try to cultivate God consciousness without expectation of reward. It is its own reward. But there's also the petition of the soul at the hour of death. Please, ferry my soul to the best destination. The best destination is going to be the one that it's most conducive to serving you. Where do you want me to go? That's where I'll go. But also, I'm pretty weak. So help me at the hour of my death and throughout my life. Help me to remember you so that I can be strong when it comes to that moment. This is really important. The hour of death is a sacred passage in Buddhism as well. You have things like the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It's not named it was named the Tibetan Book of the Dead later, but you have the Egyptian Book of the Dead. You have many traditions that speak to the importance of the hour of our passing and what our consciousness is like at that hour. And in Bhakti, we say we want to pray for remembrance. We chant, we listen to talks about God, we listen to sacred music. We chant kirtan, we study the sacred scriptures. Why? To remember God and keep that remembrance going. We can just keep that fire going until the moment of our death. It offers us progressively better and better situations in this world to continue cultivating our spiritual life. And it also, in the last, it brings us home. So that's the conclusion of the Bhakti, all the Bhakti literature. And in particular here, as we're coming down to the close of the Sri Isopanisad, these are the final thoughts. I will have one more mantra in this series before we're finished. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I'd love to hear your thoughts, questions. If you have them, info@nightlightastrology.com. Put Bhakti question into the subject line. All right, that's what we've got for today. Take it easy, everyone. Hare Krishna.